Fantastic. Well, a very good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar this morning. We've had an excellent take-up, and we sincerely trust this will be beneficial. This is Matthew here, speaking from Udale, and just going to give you a brief introduction to today's brief webinar. So this is the first and maybe first of many brief webinar series from Udale, as we're very passionate about the manufacturing industry, and in particular the blind industry. We're very keen to assist our clients where we can, and especially at the current time where there's extra challenges. And I guess the number one question that is in many of our clients' minds right now is, when the time is right, how do I operate my business whilst protecting my staff? So we hope to cover that off very shortly. So as many of you would know, and I trust you've seen the video I launched the other week as a bit of an update, being a key supplier to the blind industry and the healthcare industry, we've been working very busy, round the clock literally, over the past weeks, delivering our range of healthcare products to the individuals dealing directly with the frontline COVID-19 situation. And we've also been supporting the build of the new Nightingale hospitals. It's a very great privilege of ours, and it's been very interesting times. And when I recorded the video, I said that we've supplied over 1 million items, whether it be some cubicle track or disposable curtains or some PPE equipment. That has rapidly risen to in the millions now. So it's been exciting times. We've had our challenges along the way, and we've enjoyed working with everyone we've been working with. So today, we're here today with our partners, Southalls, a leading health and safety consultancy, and they've been very helpful throughout this whole journey in helping us operate our business safely, and we'd like to share this with you. I do just want to say here that we're in no way promoting you to go ahead of government advice and put yourselves or your staff at risk. And obviously, please do take what is said today in context. So moving on shortly to handing you over to Ian. Ian is from Southalls on the call today. He's the operations director. He's an ex-health and safety enforcement officer or regulator, and he turned into consultancy 10 years ago to use his knowledge to provide many practical solutions to businesses to ensure they can comply with the myriad of health and safety legislations without impacting their productivity and impacting their sales. Their mantra has always been to do as much of the doing as they can and build long-term relationships. And we've certainly proved that here at Udale. And I will say now that at the end of the call, he has got a great offer for all of those that joined the call, which it's up to you whether you want to take up or not. So I'm now going to welcome Ian onto the call. Welcome in.
Thanks very much, Matthew. Hello all, and thanks for joining the webinar that Udale have put out. And as I said, very much appreciate the invite to talk to you guys. It'd be really nice for us to be able to share some knowledge that we've built up over the last, well, probably 8 weeks really, since we've started having to work with our customer base on how to deal with health and safety during these challenging times. And Udale in particular, from liaising with them, a kind of living testament to how you can come together to fight COVID-19 and operate in a way to ensure that staff are kept safe at the same time. And it's really critical that businesses such as Udale and probably many of you listening are able to operate. And Udale in particular are doing a really good job of balancing, the critical items they need to support the clients, the NHS, with staff safety. And what's also really important, I think will come out the kind of next 15 minutes of this webinar, is they are continually reviewing their approach, which is really critical to what is required. So thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Ian. Very good. Well, we're going to move on to our first question. Today, everyone, we've got 4 key questions that I've managed to network with our clients and put together a summary of 4 questions which seem to be on everyone's minds. And we appreciate, Ian, your answers will be, they will be generic, and each case may have to be looked at a bit more individually, but there's going to be some great content coming out of this. So the first question here is, what a lot of our clients are saying to us is, we are keen to start back when the time is right. So do I need to change the layout of my offices and my warehouse? And do I need to change the way we operate our showroom? So many of our clients have showrooms, Ian, as I'm sure you'd know, many have factories. So I wonder whether you could answer that question for us, Ian?
No problem at all. Okay, so what we look at in health and safety, and that applies to COVID-19, is always what we call the hierarchy of control. And within the hierarchy of control, you're basically looking at, can something be eliminated, i.e. can we not do it? Or then you move down that range to sort of personal protective equipment. So in the hierarchy of control, start very simply with one thing in mind when you're looking at your workplace. Can I keep my staff 2 meters apart from each other? We've all heard about this social distancing rule, and that's not going to go away. Over the next 6, 12, 18 months, we can't envisage that social distancing is not going to become a thing. And this will then cover all areas of the workplace. So if we take an office, for example, you may need to spread out chairs a bit more. You might have to, take some chairs away, tape up chairs and desks to try and keep your 2 meters apart. If you move into a canteen area, you may be able to reduce the amount of chairs that are in there, just to make sure that you're restricting what people can do, because obviously we're all human, and maintaining 2 meters is kind of becoming ingrained in our psyche. But at the same time, we've also got to be aware that because we are human, we might get closer to each other, we might be chatting. So anything physical you can put in place or restrict is very, very useful on that front. Once you've looked at the kind of distancing, if you're moving into somewhere like your warehouse, if you've got that, you might want to mark out certain zones. You'll have probably all been to the supermarket, and you'll have seen, the supermarkets do it with wait here zones, yellow tape zones, and this kind of goes forward into the warehouse of whether you have one-way zones. If it's narrower aisles, do you have a one-way system in place so everyone's walking in the same direction? Obviously, you've got to consider productivity here. If it's a larger warehouse, you end up with bigger movement, bigger scenarios. So you've got to look at that on an individual basis. So you can mark these areas out, and these are very important control measures. Once you've considered your kind of 2 meter clear area, that's when you then start looking at staffing levels. Okay, so the first question is, do all staff need to be in work? Now, obviously, we're expecting an update from the government on Sunday. We'll all wait with bated breath, and I can't speculate what might be in that. But one thing that I think will certainly be in that is, look, as we return to work, and for those companies that are beginning to who have still been trading like Udel, the principle will also still apply that if someone can work from home, can that continue? Because it keeps them away from risk. If they have got to be in the office, can you stagger arrival time, shifts, etc.? So you haven't got everyone clocking in, chatting, having a coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning. So think about how your team work and how flexible that might be able to be. You may then also need to continually remind staff about social distancing, because you might find, which we've already had reported back from our clients, that towards the end of the day, people get more relaxed and forget. They get what we're calling afternoon social distancing fatigue. If your 2 meters clear can't be kept, your social distance, and you've looked at all your work areas and you have still got to have people in the workplace, but you've got intricate little areas, machines, etc., where you might need some additional control measures, that's when you need to look at some physical controls, such as screens, which I know Udel have done, doing a lot of and are supplying a lot of, to give yourself separation between two individuals. And then further from that, you might then need some personal protective equipment, such as face visors, goggles, masks. But that very much is moving down the hierarchy, because if you can maintain your social distancing, then PPE may be less critical. And then just to finish off Matthew's query on showrooms there, how you do social distancing on this depends very much on customer numbers and what your normal flow is. So you'll probably have a relatively good idea from pre-COVID of how many customers you normally get, but you need some very clear signage on the window about people might be required to wait outside. Work out how many people you can reasonably have in your showroom to maintain social distancing. Okay, that's what the supermarkets have done. They've worked out we can have 10 people in the Tesco Express, others are available, I know it's not the BBC, we can have in that supermarket to maintain our social distancing. Once you've done that, you can decide whether the showroom can trade. And my feeling is that it should be able to trade. You should be able to get people in safely. So then you come further down the line. Cleaning down your touch points will be a viable thing. You might ask customers to wait outside. You may have to ask customers to come by appointment only, so you can schedule when they're going to be there. So having a good cleaning regime around that will help, that you can clear the door handles down, etc., that people might have touched. PPE within that environment, about asking customers to wear face masks, is an option, and you might put that in. However, it's more difficult because they're not employees as such, and it might not be viable. But we may find, as has happened in other European countries, that the government may stipulate some sort of face covering anyway, in which case that problem will be solved for you. So I hope that kind of helps in a nutshell there, Matthew, and obviously I can pick up on anything as we go through that I might have missed.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. That really is fantastic. I think you've really covered the different areas of the workplace very well there. And I think what you mentioned there about looking at the options and making it as practical as possible, we've certainly proved it in our workplace. All these different things you've mentioned about number of staff, people working from home and whatnot. So yeah, thank you very much. Some real practical steps that can be worked on there to help the business function. So we'll go on to the next question now, if that's okay, Ian.
Yep, no problems.
So the next question I've put together, which I'll bring up on the screen here now, is many of my team go to site to install blinds. Some are in houses, some are in public buildings, whilst others are on construction sites. How do I protect my team? Now, I appreciate again here, Ian, I'm putting a pretty broad question here. I'm trying to put multiple questions into one. So give us a bit of an overview on that. It'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So let's sort of break it down, I suppose. Let's start with the construction sites. Look, the Construction Leadership Council, and it's on, I believe the PDF is on UDEL's website as well, or will be available following this. The Construction Leadership Council for construction sites have really taken the lead on this. And they've put together some really good guidance on what you need to do. Now, a lot of this will be based, again, on the main contractor, if that's not yourself, because they will stipulate what is required when you get on site. But again, you're working through your hierarchy. So do they need to be on site? Probably. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trading. Then you're looking at the vulnerability factor, which goes through all of these. So I won't repeat it throughout all of them. But you're looking at vulnerability. You know, if someone is in one of the highly vulnerable groups, so they've got previous health conditions, etc. Can you restrict which sites they go to? Can they go to smaller sites where there might be less people? May not be possible, but it's just a consideration you've got to have within it. Once you're then on site, it will then be, again, maintaining social distancing. So a lot of meetings will be held at distance. They will be avoided. But then really you need to be providing your guys with suitable PPE. And here, because construction signs can be fairly fluid, it is unlikely that they will just rely on social distancing within the construction site, because they've got less control because it's multiple contractors. Therefore, having some suitable personal protective equipment as stipulated by the site, which will either be probably an FFP2 face mask or your 3-ply surgical masks, that will be a requirement. And then reminding your guys hand hygiene, etc., and keeping all of that in place. So that's the kind of construction site. But as I say, have a look at the Leadership Council PDF document. It's really helpful and useful. Public buildings, again, once we've established that they have got to be there and we've looked at the vulnerability, you will have to look at where you're working in these public buildings. So try and find out from your client or whoever's employing you, is the public building occupied? If it's not occupied, it'll be fairly straightforward. Social distancing, get in there, do the work. If it's occupied, can you be separated out? You know, similarly anyway, from a health and safety point of view, and having a safe working area, can they give you a 2-meter block boxed off with, you know, barriers or stock, whatever it might be, where you can work safely within that environment, and therefore you can social distance coming in, you can do your work, and you can social distance coming out. So the very same principles on that will apply. And then finally, for domestic properties, which kind of in theory sounds like the easiest, but might not be, there are just other areas to consider here, because the vulnerability here impacts on 2 people, because the person, your customer within the domestic property may be vulnerable. So, you know, how do you get into the premises? We knock on the door, we step back, we wait for the door to be opened, we talk at a 2-meter distance, and then move together and be told where to do the work whilst maintaining social distances. Explain to the customer what you're doing. Keep them at ease that you're following basic hygiene procedures. Make sure your team have got sanitizers that they can clean down, so work wipes, so they can clean down the area. Whilst we all love a cup of tea and coffee, or most of us, it's probably not advisable for your team to be accepting teas and coffees. Explain to the customer why, that you're trying to minimize the risk to yourself and to them. When that cup goes back, and they're washing it, etc., they're increasing their risk by having someone else in their environment. So essentially, you're wanting to have very, very much minimal contact. And whatever you do around these areas, the really important thing is at some point, and ideally in the not too distant future, you get these documented in a risk assessment, because that risk assessment will be very important. And I'll touch on that just before the end. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you, Ian, for covering those areas. I think for those listening on the call today, our clients, I think that's be one of the most valuable points, because this is where our customers are going on a day-to-day basis. So really good just to get that breakdown and kind of see it a bit clearer. There's a lot of concern and confusion, different messages going around us. That's really, really helpful. And just all those listening today, just to clarify, these links that Ian has been referring to, we will be sharing that with you after the call. So that'll all come around to, that's fantastic. So on to our second from last question of today. It looks like we might run slightly over time. Apologies, attendees, but it's certainly worth you staying on for the entire duration, because there's still some good stuff coming up today. So question number 3, this is around deliveries and goods received. So what do our clients do, Ian, about goods they receive, and how can they interact with delivery drivers? We have a fleet here of our own delivery drivers. They're going to see customers each day. So what can you say about that for us, Ian?
Okay, yeah. So delivery drivers is one of possibly the more slightly straightforward areas. So your drivers and your team, receiving deliveries on site, if you're receiving deliveries, can be given, again, some very simple instructions. And again, I've mentioned it, but we go back to the social distancing element. So maintaining your 2-meter distance, the window can be wound down. It can be discussed at a distance. When they arrive, ask them to remain in their vehicle to start with. It's good practice. You can put a sign up at the entrance, say, please remain in your vehicle, because you can communicate from there to get it safe. If stock's got to be offloaded, if it's pallets, that might be you doing it with a lift truck, with a pallet truck, so they can remain away. If they're offloading a few boxes to give to you, again, they can be left 2 meters peer. So all the time you're thinking about minimizing contact. Do you have to have paperwork that's signed off, or could that be done in a different way? Could it be done in a more up-to-date digital way? That might be an option. If it is signed off, make sure your drivers have all got their own pens, etc., that they don't have to share. If it's an electronic sign-off, like your deliveries that you get, can that be left on a table on the wall at delivery, so the person can walk up to it and sign it, so you haven't got to get within 2 meters of someone to pass it over? Remind staff to wash their hands after taking a delivery, and remind them about hand hygiene throughout the day. And your own drivers, they might not always be able to wash their hands, so having some sanitizer for them in the vehicle is good. I think it's very important to be clear here as well that the government's very clearly saying washing with warm soapy water is the best thing. The sanitizers, the backup when you can't wash your hands. If your drivers need to use the facilities, they should be allowed. It's not reasonable to say, sorry, mate, you can't go to the toilet. And it will create a lot of bad press. And there already has been quite a lot of bad press about this. So just make them aware of basic hygiene measures. Some basic signage to remind everyone about these control measures is really important. And again, document them within your risk assessment. So in summary, really on that, ask yourself through all of these little sections here is, does the person need to be at work? Yes. Does the person, can I maintain social distancing throughout all these scenarios? Yes or no? If I can't, what PPE might I need? And am I reminding people what I'm doing in terms of hygiene, social distancing, etc.? Have I documented it in a risk assessment? And as part of that risk assessment, am I reminding and checking that my process works? So am I doing a little internal check, audit, etc.? Those elements are the key bits. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you, Ian, very much. Well, to use a expression now, I think you're really helping us to see the wood through the trees with what you've been going over so far. And I think it's important that we demonstrate to visitors that come to our property that what we are practicing, and we are practicing social distancing, and we are taking measures. So it's not only important to convey this to our teams and our staff, but also to those that visit. Now, the final point I'd like you to run over with us, Ian, is that we've obviously mentioned already on the call that the government are going to be releasing some further details on at the weekend, and it's really important that we respect and adhere to the government advice. And it is a changing scene out there, and a lot of our clients have got concerns of how they stay up to date, how they remain compliant as the regulations move on and change. So you've got a great package, haven't you, that you're offering out to our clientele today. So what I'm going to do now is ask you if you could just run over the offer you have.
Yeah, thanks very much. Look, I'll keep it brief, guys, in the interest of time, really. We tried to come up with something that just maybe takes the stress out of it for you guys if you're coming back into it and worrying about it. So what we've decided is, look, we're going to support by actually working with you to put together the risk assessment, which is really, really important, because if you're going to get challenged on any of your measures, the first thing that a regulator, insurer, anyone will ask you about is what is your risk assessment for operating how you're operating. So that's a really important bit, and we put that together. To kind of facilitate it then, bits that are really important are things like some e-learning and infection control that you can give your employees and or managers. So we've got a software system called Safety Cloud, which Udale have used for 10 years probably, which hosts some of these information. So we just want to give people access to it. If after COVID you don't need access anymore, we just switch it off we go. We'll see how it evolves. We'll help you put together health questionnaires that you may need for when people are coming back off self-isolations, critically give you some information on checklists and bespoke what you need for them, so you can demonstrate your risk assessment working. That might be a checklist for a construction site when you visit it, or within your warehouse, shop, showroom. Home workers is another element that the government's touching on. So we'll look at the home worker risk assessment for everyone who is still going to be working from home, and give you access to e-learning. And we've put some mental health e-learning together within that package as well, just because it is quite topical at the moment. This is the offer. Look, Matthew asked me to come on, so very happy to offer a discount onto that that kind of list price on there. We're going to put a fair bit of work in it, working with you guys to get it right, and hopefully the resources such as the e-learning, the posters, etc., that we can give you will make your life a lot easier, that you haven't got to source it. And even once we've done that, the key for us, as I said earlier, was always about building relationships. So, even if your risk assessment is, finished in inverted commas, we will happily, even, a month or so later, keep reviewing it with you and keep you up to date, because as Matthew said, there's a lot of information coming out, and sometimes just trying to find the time to read a 30-page government document to work out which bit you've got to do can be quite a challenge. So, we'll tell you the bits you need to use based on whatever your unique situation or scenario would be. So, if anyone does want to chat to me about it, give me a call. There's obviously no obligation, etc., and I'm more than happy to talk you through how it might work for your scenario, or drop me an email. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate your offer there. And just to make that clear, that package that you're offering to clients, or you're offering that to all your clients at 695, but anyone that is a connection of Udale that's been on this call this morning will get a further 10%. It's a very, very generous offer there. And really what you're offering at Southwells is someone to hold your hand and help you through it. So I would genuinely recommend it. Appreciate that, Ian, very much. So we're about to summarize and close up, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I mentioned at the start that we've been supplying a lot of PPE and other equipment to the front line. We are supplying that and offering that to all of our clients. We've got a workplace ready kit. We've got PPE. We're offering extended credit terms if that's something you would like help on, and that's on your initial order. And we're also offering a free 500ml bottle of hand sanitizer to all our clients. So just a few areas there we're trying to support our clients, and please don't hesitate to reach out. So if there's anything else we can do for you, we'll send you our details out after this call. And please don't be afraid just to reach out to either myself or Ian, and there'll also be a questionnaire coming out after the call, probably tomorrow. Please give us your feedback. We do trust this has been beneficial, and if you'd like to see more of them, ask for it and we'll do it. If you'd like to see it done differently, please state. It's been a great pleasure to host this, and we sincerely trust it's been of assistance to our clients and the industry. We have a very definite love for the industry. We've been in it a long time, and we're here to stay, and we're here to support you. So a big thank you again to Ian for giving up your time and sharing this great free advice. I really recommend taking on board what Ian has said this morning and reaching out if you've got any queries. So thank you, everybody. And we trust we all keep safe and all the very best for the future. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.